A pin is one of the deadliest tactics in chess, and if you utilize it correctly, it can win you games on its own. Let's see how it works. What is a pin? A pin is when you use your bishop, queen, or rook in order to attack an enemy piece in such a way that it cannot move because it's guarding a higher value piece behind it. Why is this a useful thing to do? Because doing so restricts the enemy pieces and puts them in place for our further attacks when we want to attack this knight again, as we're going to soon see. So there are multiple types of pins, and the first one that we're seeing right now is when you pin something to the king. This is called an absolute pin because the piece absolutely cannot move according to the rules of chess. Technically, if this knight should move, we would take the king, but we don't really do that in chess. So according to the rules of chess, your opponent cannot move the knight. The second type of pin is called a relative pin. It's when you use your bishop or queen or rook in order to attack a minor piece in such a way that there's a queen or a rook behind it. In this particular case, if the knight moves somewhere, we would just take the queen, and that's a very advantageous trade. The next thing I want to talk about is what to do when you're on the receiving end of a pin. So let's say bishop g5 is played and we are playing with the black pieces. How do we get rid of this? Well, there are multiple ways. The first one is to do something called breaking the pin or unpinning. It's when you put a minor piece, knight or bishop, more commonly bishop, between the piece that's pinned and the piece that it's pinned to. So in this case, bishop to e7 would unpin or break the pin, meaning that our knight can safely move because this is just a trade, not a worry. And another way to unpin or break the pin is to move the piece that it's pinned to. So in this case, that will be the queen. So if we make a queen move that goes away from this line of fire, for example, queen to d6, that would break the pin. Now our knight can again safely move because we would not lose anything behind it. And the third final way to unpin in chess is to remove the attacker. So the first one was to break the pin by putting a piece between. The second one was to remove the piece that it's pinned to. And the third one is to remove the attacker. So pawn to h6 forces the bishop to go back. If they go back on this diagonal, then it's not a pin anymore. And if they keep the pin going, this is more common, then they again put you to a decision. Do you want to go bishop e7 and unpin in the first way, or do you want to keep chasing the attacker away, g5? Now, when you are castled on this side of the board, be very careful about this move because it may run into a sacrifice, it may be weakening long term, but if you're not castled here, no problem. So pawn to g5 forces them to go back, and we have unpinned and can continue development as we want. Those will be the three ways to unpin. Let's show them on the first example as well, in the absolute pin on this side of the board. So after bishop to b5, I'm going to flip the board here. We are playing as black. What are the three ways to unpin? The first one would be to put the bishop between. That way, even if they take it, we don't have to ruin our pawns. We can just take back with a piece. And then the second best way would be to go a6 and just put this bishop in some trouble and put a question to white. Do they want to get rid of this tension? Do they want to get rid of this pin by going back, by capturing, or they want to keep the pin going and possibly risk getting kicked away again? So that'll be the second way. And the third way is to move the king somewhere safe, which is not possible at the moment. But if we had a little bit more development for both sides, let's say something along these lines, bishop g7, now we could see that third way as well. We could castle out of this pin. So the king is no longer here, so the pin is broken, allowing our knight to freely move if he so desires. That was how to unpin or break the pin if you are on the receiving end of it. But what do you do if you are the attacker? How do you win material using the pin if your opponent does not know about unpinning or breaking the pin? So let's say your opponent just plays a random pawn move. How would you actually exploit this instead of just saying, hey, you can't move your knight? Is there a way to actually win that knight? Yes, there is. So the two ways to exploit the pin are, number one, put pressure on the pinned piece because it's a sitting duck for any attacks. It cannot move out of the way as usual. When you do this, you preferably do this with a pawn, because if you do so with pieces, let's say knight to d4, they can add pieces too into the defense. They can even do so with a queen if necessary. Of course, bishop would be better, but just to prove a point, when you attack with pieces, they can defend with pieces. And this is just a big trade, no worries. So the best thing to do is do it with a pawn. So pawn to d4, pawn to d5. If we get the pawn up to d5, if our opponent allows that, we actually win a piece, no matter how many defenders they have. So let's say that they ignore us, they don't recognize the threat, and they go knight f6. We could just win this knight. So after d5, even if they add a defender, it doesn't matter, because we're going to trade a pawn for a knight. Let's see how that works. So let's say they go bishop d7 now, but it's already too late. We take the knight, they take our pawn, sure, and we just go back. Let's say to defend this pawn as well. And we have won their knight, they have won our pawn. So in terms of the point system, we have won 2 points of material. That was the first way to use pins when you have them. So when you are the attacker, try to put pressure on the pinned piece with everything you have, preferably with a pawn, but if unavailable, then pieces are the next best thing. So try to get as many pieces to that knight as possible before they break the pin. The second way is a little bit advanced of taking advantage of pins, but I'm going to adjust the position here in order to show you how that works. So let's say the position is something like this. And now you might say, oh, this is a pin, so we put more pressure on it, but we can't quite get a pawn here. Our queen move is blocked and so on. The second way to use pins is to take something, to capture something that the pinned piece is protecting, because it's actually not due to the pin. Pinned pieces cannot move, therefore they cannot protect anything else. So this e5 pawn seems like it's protected, but it's actually not. So we could go knight takes e5, taking advantage of the pin, taking advantage of the fact that the knight cannot take us because we would take the king, technically, in order to win a free pawn. So take something that the pin piece is protecting because it's actually not. Now, you might say, oh, I could have also removed that knight first and then taken the pawn. That would be a removing the defender tactic. That would also work. But there are some examples in which that's not good enough. For example, let me adjust again. So let's say we have a3 and knight e7. Now, if you try to remove the defender and then take here, it's not going to work because they could just replace it with another defender. So for that reason, in this particular position that we're seeing, we have to utilize the pin tactic to take a free pawn here. And when they try to unpin, we could just trade our way out of trouble here. We take this one, we take this one, and we emerge a clean pawn up, continued development, and a nice advantage for white. Here's a small puzzle position for you to make sure that you fully understood the concept of a pin. It's a bit of a difficult puzzle, but take your time, notice all the pins that you have in the position, and drop your best solution down in the comments. I'll take a look at each of them and reply. As a small bonus for making it until the end of the video, I want to show you 2 more types of pins that are not so well known, but equally important. So the first one is called a terminal pin. Terminal meaning game ending, so something to do with checkmate. So here the move queen c3 terminally pins the knight, because if the knight should move, then we could just checkmate the black king. So this is something called a terminal pin. Many players think that for a pin to be a pin, there must be a piece behind it, but you can also pin something to a square that you want to get to. This is where the advanced types of pins that I'm showing you now come from. So queen c3 or even queen to h6 would be terminally pinning the knight, because the core concept of a pin is if the attack piece moves out of the way, something bad happens. In the case of the absolute pin, we take the king. In the case of the relative pin, we take a queen or rook. In the case of a terminal one, we checkmate them. So if the knight should move somewhere, we could just checkmate them on one of these 2 squares. That's a terminal pin. And the second type I want to show you is a situational pin. These are basically all other pins. So all other pins means any pin that fulfills the core idea of the pin, but is not a absolute, relative, or terminal pin. So here, rook to c1 pins the knight to a 4-king square. So you can also pin something to a square. So it's not an absolute pin because there's no king behind it. It's not a relative pin. There's no queen or rook behind it. And it's not a terminal pin because it's not checkmate. This makes it a situational pin, just everything else. So again, if the knight moves, then rook c7 is a fork. So if the attacked piece moves, something bad happens. As long as that sentence is true, it is a pin. And here is a advanced puzzle. Now that you've learned about terminal pins, because this is a part of this puzzle, it's white to play right now. So you could drop this under advanced puzzle in the comments and I'll take a look at your solution. And that was everything you need to know about pins. Now it's your turn to practice. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. And if you like the idea of chess improvement in general, like on the video and subscribe on my channel to see more stuff like this. And I'll talk to you very soon. Take it easy.